What's up, guys? Today I will be bringing you a quad dominant leg workout. One of the most common questions I get asked all the time is how do I bring up lagging quads, lagging hamstrings, or overall lagging leg development in general? And when it comes to leg development, it really just boils back down to your most basic fundamental principles of training for muscular size and hypertrophy. Number one would be execution, making sure that you're taking the muscle through its full contractile range and contracting as hard as possible where the tension is the most challenging. And number two would be exercise selection. Once you find those strong contractions, also work to find exercises that work best for you and your structure. And this comes with time, comes with a lot of experimenting within different exercises. But once you find the ones that you can really control the tension and be able to accurately place it on the muscles you want to train, keep those in your programming. And lastly, once you have execution laid out with the proper exercises, then it's time to load. Once you have the execution nailed and your mind-muscle connection is strong, from that point, progressive overload becomes a very important factor in bringing up those lagging body parts. A lot of people jump into progressive overload without having execution laid out first, and also without doing it on the proper exercises that fit their structure. Progressive overload tends to be near the top of the muscle building pyramid, with the foundations in execution and exercise selection laid out. So what I have laid out here is a quad dominant leg workout, and most of the time my leg workouts will start with a quad hamstring superset to make sure that I'm warm in the shortened range for both quads and hamstrings. So I selected leg extensions and lying leg curls, as you will see later. Again, these are my sets where I'm just trying to get my brain and get my central nervous system in focus with that neuromuscular junction to be able to contract and contract hard before I get into any compound movements. So after that, I went to the reverse band back squat with the heels elevated. This is a really good quad dominant movement. With the heels elevated, it allows the knee to travel and get over the toe while still keeping the weight heavy as you would in a back squat versus a front squat. I prefer the backs versus fronts because when I load the front squats, I tend to have my shoulders fail before my quads, and I just want the quads to be the first muscle group to fail when trying to stimulate the most hypertrophy. After that, it was leg press for 2 sets, went heavy for 2 sets of 8 to 10, then backed off for about 2 sets of 20, more higher rep lactic acid training. And then I went onto the horizontal leg press machine. This week I performed it with 1 leg. Most of my workouts in the recent training block have been 2 leg, and I would even combine that horizontal leg press as part of a superset with either lunges or leg extensions. But it was just the horizontal leg press, 1 leg at a time. Really focus on getting that additional bit of range of motion that would be limited with a 2-leg leg press, as you'll see on the plate loaded leg press versus the horizontal cable stack leg press. And so again, 2 sets of those, and then I went back to leg extensions to finish off every little bit of muscle fiber that I need to exhaust in the shortened range, and finished it on the second set with a neurological overload set. Then I transitioned to hamstrings, went back to lying leg curls to start. That's been my prime movement for hamstrings in the shortened position to begin my hamstring portion of my leg days. So 2 sets there with a neurological overload on the second set. And then I moved on to seated leg curl, another hamstring shortened dominant movement. Really good contraction at the bottom, 2 sets of those with the neurological overload set. And then after, I went on to barbell Romanian deadlifts, this time putting my toes elevated on the heel wedge to obtain a little bit more dorsiflexion of the ankle joint and getting a little bit more stretch at the bottom of the range of motion. You'll notice I won't come anywhere near touching the ground with the plates, but that's not the point of the movement. All it is just a hip hinge movement, throwing your butt back and then allowing your hamstrings to stretch and then contract out of the bottom. And then I actually experimented a few sets, I didn't get any video of it, with a banded Romanian deadlift. I'm really intrigued to try to add this exercise into my programming, but with the squat racks at the University of Scranton gym, I wasn't able to find a really good setup to be able to band and give band tension at the top. I could possibly set up a reverse band technique for Romanian deadlifts by banding horizontally through the squat rack and then placing the bands on my hips to make it a little bit easier to hip hinge. But I tried to band and give myself the tension at the top, but I wasn't able to. I got heavy dumbbells and it still was hard to get them out without the dumbbells rolling. So with a little bit more experimentation and possibly using other squat racks at other gyms that I might train at, that could be an exercise that I would like to put in the program in the future. And then after that, for the first time, I've never really gotten into these, but I did do a superset of the hip adductor and abductor machines. And it was just basic, following the principle of my workout. 2 working sets per, doing these sets consecutively back to back in superset manner. And I really did like the feel of these. I think these will have a good carryover to my squats, with especially having a reverse band back squat in my programming for the next few weeks to try to overload that, because I do notice that, especially out of the bottom, although the reverse band will help, but just some kind of hip impingement will happen if I keep this movement in my programming and go heavy with it for any extended period of time. Anytime I would have a back squat movement in, I would usually only be able to keep it for maybe 4 to 6 weeks, and then I would have to swap out for some kind of braced hack squat or pendulum squat maneuver. So I believe the training of the abduction and adduction movements for the hips will definitely have a good carryover to the squat, and hopefully the hips in my squat won't be my weakest link anymore, and everything will tend to fail in a much more even manner. So this is a leg workout that I performed alone. One thing I do like doing with leg days is having a training partner, and training partners are great any day of the week, especially leg days. And anytime you could get a quality spot and get some force reps to just extend these sets with my low volume style of training, 2 working sets per exercise, it would be very beneficial to help extend those sets even farther. And that is one thing I could point to over my few years training that has really helped my quad development and even my hamstring development. Having spots not only on leg extensions and leg curls, but also extending sets of squats, extending sets of hack squats, leg presses. Because if you have a really experienced spotter that keeps their eye on you for the set, when you hit that sticking point, it just takes a small amount of force that you alone would not be able to generate yourself. But just with a little help from a spot, you could help to extend that set. And those 1 or 2 reps that you could add at the end of each set really add up over time. But not to discourage anyone, not to say you can't train alone. But it's just you have to realize these things, and when you have the opportunity to train with someone, focus on that. Focus on the high intensity style of training, even more so than 2 working sets. Try to even get it down to 1 working set if you have a really good spot. But doing this alone, 2 working sets will probably be sufficient for most people. Still, you want to get as close as possible, safely, toward muscular failure. And that is the goal of the workout, and that's been the goal of my workouts across the board recently. So I will get more in detail in the future in regards to specific exercises and what I look for in quads, hamstrings, and beyond with all other muscle groups. But this is just a basic leg workout that I took myself through last night. So I want to share this with you guys. Again, let me know. Love the video, hate the video. Also, if you guys want, you can follow me on Instagram. My username is SmithAustin789. I post a lot of content on there as well. Shorter exercise clips and full workouts will get posted on there from time to time, along with posting my story, some meals, supplementation. All that is on my Instagram page. Once again, that's SmithAustin789. And I will leave you guys with this leg workout, quad dominant leg day. I hope you enjoy this. So to start the workout, I began with a superset of leg extensions and seated leg curls. The leg extensions are shown here. All I'm focusing on doing is really staying locked into the seat, keeping my butt down and back, and initiating through the quads and focusing on hitting the shortened position at the top of the rep. You'll see there I'll hold for about a second before slowing down and going back up. Hit these 2 working sets each in the superset for about 8 to 10 reps per set. I went pretty much till muscle failure on these sets in that 8 to 10 rep range and extended the set with a few partials. This is the first set of leg extensions, working with about 170 pounds for, I believe it was 10 reps. Didn't really count the partials in total. And then actually moved on to lying leg curls. The seated was occupied at the moment. So same thing here, staying braced against the pad, really keeping my quads locked against the pad, holding steady with my hands. All that will prevent my butt from going up, and really staying locked down to initiate 100% out of the length and range there with the hamstrings, and really keeping the slow contractions to start. Since this is my priming superset, I'm not really focused on moving a ton of weight as of yet, but just building the strong contractions for when I get into my overload sets. I'll be able to better recruit the muscle fibers from both the quads and the hamstrings. I'm under tension on this set about a minute or so. I believe it was 9 reps before extending with partials. And then I go back to leg extensions. After the first set, I wanted to work a little bit heavier, a little bit more explosive as I get sets and sets in. So I was again gunning with the same weight, about 170 pounds on the stack there, and aiming for about 8+ reps on the second set. I had Ethan there ready for forced reps. So after that, once I start to fail and not reach that fully shortened position, I'll have him pop in, help at the top just a little bit to get me past that sticking point to allow me to extend the set. See right there, yep, there's the sticking point. And he comes in, and then we're able to extend the set for another 2 reps. There we go. And the slow eccentric to follow. And then back to lying leg curls. Same weight I used. It was 80 pounds. Usually when purely training hamstrings, I'll work with 90 pounds for an 8 to 10 rep range to start out the hamstring portion of my leg day. But again, like I said earlier, still in the priming stage. So I didn't want to go too crazy with the weight, but still train the real strong contraction out of the length. And my eccentrics are about 4 to 5 seconds. This is pretty much as slow as I'm going to go to really make sure I'm cued in for when the heavier work begins and I'm able to recruit much more efficiently. Some people will take their priming sets till failure like I do here, so then they become more of like a pre-exhaust method rather than just priming the nervous system for the heavier loads. That, again, up to you, depending on your workout, depending on your goals for that workout and what you have next. You could really reap some great results with either one. So then I moved on to reverse band heel elevated back squats. This has been my main overload movement of the past few weeks. I've been keeping accurate track of my weights. So today I started with 335. I've usually been starting with 315 and working up to 335, but 335 has been smooth. So I decided to start with it here. So what I did was a 335 for 6 reps, heels elevated to let the knees travel and initiate that quad involvement. You see, I'm not really trying to get to the floor per se, but once my quad runs out of length to travel, that's it. I cut the rep, smooth 6 to start, and then after I went up to 345, just tossed a 5 on top. Same thing with the reverse band. And actually, it looked like my form on this one might be even a touch better. Each rep accurate bracing of my abs coming up and smooth. Especially my main goal on these heavy movements is to make rep 1 look like the final rep of the set, not having form breakdown at all. And you can see this will be it. Rep 5 with 345, and it went up pretty smooth. So then after the 2 working sets of squats, I proceeded to do a back off set. Depending on how much volume I want to add for the workout for the day, I will include back off sets depending. Usually 1, very rarely I will do 2. But I went down to 275 here, really slow eccentric, focusing on all the little kinks of the form that might slightly deteriorate when you get to the heavier weights. So these are the sets that allow you to build that unconscious execution once you get to the heavier loads. So as you can see, relative struggle here with 275, which means that I really did the work that I should have with my heavy loads of 335 and 345. Only getting 6 reps, sticking point at the top, and that's it. And then after that, I moved on to leg press. Leg press is always a bread and butter movement for my quads. Bracing is perfect. Your back is braced against the pad. I'm locked in with my hands against the poles. And after a few warm-up sets, I didn't include any warm-up sets on this video, just the working sets. So I worked up to 7 plates and a 25 here. And again, aiming for that 8 to 10 rep range. Squats, I'll dip a little bit below 8, sometimes more toward 5 or 6, but I will not do that on leg press. I usually like to keep it between 8 and even up to 12. So it's 7 and a 25. This is the first week I've actually touched this weight in my recent programming. Usually been working with 7 plates, but the form really stayed pretty well, and I tried to extend the set as much as humanly possible on a leg press with no spot. So the first set I believe that was 9 reps, and then the second set also 9. Still slow, everything looked good. People will probably bring up the range of motion, but again, total quad focus, not wanting the low back to round off of the pad to promote lumbar problems or even to involve any secondary muscles that I'm not looking to train on this movement. 100% quad activation there. And after the 7 and the 25, I decided to hit 2 back off sets that are shown here. Went down to 4 plates and a 25, aiming for sets of 20. Keeping my eccentrics a little bit quicker here, doing a little bit more lactic work, keeping my time under tension still within the 40 to 60 second rep range. So naturally, if training near 20 reps, you're going to have to quicken those reps a little bit. So about 2 seconds on the way down, and then an explosive pop out of the hole. Still thinking about everything I did with the heavyweight, keeping myself braced, making sure I'm stable on the pad, pushing through the heels. But the only difference with this is the lighter weight and that intense lactic burn. Once I hit about 15 reps, then I had to rest pause it and get a few more at the top. So my first set, I ended up getting 19, and I went back for a second set, also with 4 and a 25, and hit that for 16 reps. I died very quickly on this set, especially after the 2 heavy sets of squats, a back off set, and then the 2 heavy sets of leg press to follow. So 16 reps on this one, and that was pretty much it for the heavy overload work for the quads. And then after that, I moved on to one of my favorite machines you will see here at the University of Scranton gym. It's a horizontal leg press, and the only alteration I made to this one this week is doing it one leg. I've been doing it 2 leg and usually involving it with some kind of superset, whether it be lunges or leg extensions at the end to try to, again, bring up that lactic training, a more metabolic feel. And what I did with this, with the one arm, my logic behind it was even more bracing. So with two legs, I can only really stay braced against the pad, going directly back and keeping my hands locked against the handles. But with this, using one leg, I'm allowed to plant my other foot and also tilt my abdominals a little bit and keep myself braced against the side that doesn't have any weight counteracting it. So as always, starting weaker side, left foot first, and then I'll get set up for my right foot set. Hardest part, actually getting it off and getting it unracked. But from there on out, everything lines up very well. You'll see my hip, my knee, my ankle, my toe, all in that nice straight line. Again, total quad emphasis. And I really do like the bracing on this. So this is a good opportunity to, if you have a lagging side, a lagging leg or arm, anything like that, doing one arm at a time and possibly even adding a set or two on top to try to even out any muscular imbalances. Luckily, I haven't encountered any problems of that sort throughout my training, but anytime you could get some isolateral work in is always beneficial. In terms of rep range for these, aiming between 8 and 10, still keeping very slow. Put the camera out for a little bit on this set, a little bit more of a feel to see what I'm actually doing against the platform, pushing down. What I said in previous posts about this machine is I like how the strength curve matches the exercise pretty well. There's no huge drop off of tension at the bottom. So when I go out, I'll squeeze and then I'll come back for another rep. It's not like I'm getting to the top and resting. And as you can see here as well, keeping that right foot down, keeping myself braced that way, and then switching and doing that vice versa with the right leg. The way this machine is set up, there's actually 2 small posts on the ground for the right side, and then when you put your left foot down to do your right leg, there's only a post directly underneath, so you actually have to kind of put your leg directly underneath the seat to keep braced rather than putting it straight down in a 90-degree angle. But I just made do with what the machine gave me and hit 2 working sets on this, 8 to 10 reps, no intensifiers. Didn't hit any kind of drop set, rest pause set until the end of quads, which will be shown here. So I went back to leg extensions, now with a much lighter weight than the priming superset, where I hit 170. I believe this was 130. And I had to accommodate that because I knew I would be exhausted in the shortened position, and I didn't want to strictly just work mid-range. That's what happens with a lot of people, is when they fatigue and can't get contracted in the shortened position, they'll simply just keep in the mid-range where they're strong and not really force that peak contraction at the top. So that's why I lowered the weight and still aimed for 8 to 10 with only 130, but still got it up. And then didn't have anyone for the forced reps, so just extending the set with partials. I did first set, a traditional set, and then the second set, I did the neurological overload set. For those who don't know the MI40 terminology, neurological overload set essentially is just a triple drop set. So you'll pick your heaviest weight to start, and you'll aim for whether it be 8, 10, 12. Normally it's around 8 reps with your slow 4-0-1-0 tempo. And then after that, you begin by dropping weight by about 20 to 30% each drop from your working weight, and you're going to aim to get 8 reps each time. I'll be honest, I usually never hit that 8 rep because my first set is till absolute failure. I'm not able to extend those drop sets. Usually it ends up working about, if I get 8 or so reps on my first set, you could usually cut that number in half. You'll get about 4 per drop, And I believe I was around there this set. It might have been 3, might have been 4. I don't remember offhand. But this was the last set I did for quads. You could do this at the beginning, you could do this in the middle. Neurological overload sets work well anywhere when you have an exercise that you love the contraction in and you want to extend past just one set till failure. Essentially, each set will be till failure. Your initial, the drop set, your first drop set, second drop set, and third drop set. So that was it for quad training. And then I went on to hamstrings and another returning movement. Back to the lying leg curl. I've probably started at least 80 to 90% of my hamstring workouts over the past 8 months to possibly a year with the lying leg curl. One of my favorites, really keeping braced, quads stay locked into the pad. That's a major key on this movement to prevent your butt from shooting up and really taking the shortened position out, because if your butt shoots up and then you're actually contracting your hamstrings up and your feet finish high, inertia is going to take over and you're not going to get the peak contraction at the top. So with this machine, it's nice. You could maybe see around to the right side there are elbow pads and handles. So in addition to the bracing near my pelvis, I also have the bracing of my upper body. So what I did, again, same principle with this exercise, 2 working sets, aiming for 8 to 10 reps each set, keeping volume low but keeping intensity high. You'll see on almost every set I can actually do safely, I will do a set, I will extend it with partial reps, and literally move the weight until I'm contracting my muscle, but the weight is not moving at all. So the second set of the lying leg curls, I kicked off hamstrings with a neurological overload set. Any kind of machine, cable where you can easily move the pin quickly in a drop set are generally going to be your more beneficial exercises to use for a neurological overload set. Not that dumbbells or barbells can't be done, but normally a reliance on a training partner or someone else to help you switch weights to make sure you get those drops done quickly is going to benefit you. Like you see here, I just get up, stretch a little bit, take the pin out, pin back in, and then I'm ready for my drop set. So that all that takes sub 10 seconds. With barbells or dumbbells, whether you have to re-rack the plates or run the dumbbells back to the rack, that could get your time up to maybe 30 seconds, which some people will use for an actual rest time between the set. Goal for drop sets is usually between 10 and 15 seconds rest before getting right back into it. So 3 drops for the lying leg curl here. Really trying to exhaust the shortened position early on in the workout while I'm fresh, while I could still hit that contraction point. And then I move on to more hip dominant hamstring work, as you'll see later on. But lying leg curls, seated leg curls, as I will show next, are great exercises to really fatigue the shortened position and are very well braced. So this will finish up the drop set for the lying leg curls, and then as I said, I move on to seated. Seated leg curls, even more braced. I'm really intrigued by the bracing and the profile on the seated leg curl. So these might actually sneak their way up to the top of my hamstring workouts for future workouts. Same concept, it's going to be really overloaded in the shortened position, keeping myself braced. Some people, when they adjust the pad for the thighs on the seated leg curl, don't really push it down hard enough on their quads, but I have it locked flush against me to make sure that every rep I'm simply contracting hamstrings. I do not want my hips to shoot anywhere. I'm sitting back in the seat, my butt is down, my butt is back, and I'm leaning against the back pad, and then it's simply hamstring from there. In terms of some kind of mental cueing I like to use, with any hamstring movement, as odd as it may seem, I kind of think of casting a fishing line. So your knee is an arc joint, and if people think straight up and down, you're not going to be able to match the contractile ability of your hamstring. So what I do is once I contract, and then I'm lowering the weight back out to the top like that, that's what I think of. I think of casting a fishing line, bringing it out slowly, and then exploding back in. So same concept as with almost all the other exercises in this workout. 2 working sets, aiming for 8 to 10 reps till absolute failure. And this second set, I did also opt for another neurological overload set. With my hamstring training today, you'll see as I finish it up, simple, but really extending my sets and throwing in those intensifiers when I could, and getting the most out of the machinery and the exercises that I feel work best and provide the best profile for exhausting the short and the lengthened ranges. So again, drop sets, I'm about half my initial set. So on this set, I got 8 reps with 110 on the stack, and then from there you'll see each drop roughly 4. I don't really like to count the partials at the end, but I still will perform them just to get any kind of last bit of contractile ability out of the set. When the volume's so low, with maybe 1 or 2, I still use 2 working sets, but when working with potential clients, teaching the intensity of the set number 1, I believe they could even get down to 1. So then I moved on to a hip hinge movement for hamstrings and just a simple barbell Romanian deadlift. And I like going up on the heel wedge, putting my toes up, getting a little bit more dorsiflexion at the bottom, keeping those toes pointed up, and it really allows me to get that little extra stretch. And I've been going decently heavy on these lately. My form's still nice and slow and controlled, and the active range of motion I would consider here to be near perfect. So as long as that's going well, and I'm experiencing no pain anywhere other than my hamstrings, I'm going to keep loading the movement. Today I started with 250 for this set, got 8 reps, and then worked up to 260 on my next set, I believe, for 7 reps. So these are a great movement. I like throwing them in after the leg curls. Some people, depending on goals, depending on goal of the workout, will do their Romanian deadlifts fresh. And of course, you're going to be able to handle more weight this way. But one thing I've noticed is doing my leg curl variations first and then moving on to Romanian deadlifts is a much better option, because I haven't noticed that drastic of a drop off in strength on these after my leg curl variations. But what I did notice was a very enhanced ability to recruit my hamstrings more effectively. So then I actually decided, this is the first for me, moving on to a superset, working the hip in the adduction and abductor machines. So I started with a few working warm-up sets that I did not show, and I got up to 110 and 100 on each machine respectively. So the adduction to start with 2 working sets of about 8 to 10, same concept, near failure. And then you'll see the abduction after that. And I would really like to keep these in my program, especially knowing that I'm going to be overloading my squat movements to keep the hips nice and pain-free. And I will just be waiting on the soreness from these to be expected, especially after doing them for the first time. So that was today's quad, hamstring, and hip workout, and I hope you guys enjoyed that, and there will be many more to come.